Sup everybody, this is Karak with ACG, and it's my continuing open world mission to bring you reviews that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap. Today's open world chaos generator is Watch Dogs 2 from Ubisoft. One part 1980s neon filter, mix in a little of the movie Sneakers and maybe some swordfish hacking, and you have yourself a sequel. Now here you play as Marcus Holloway as he and his team of hackers work against the designs of a nefarious organization using the CTOS 2.0 surveillance software on the entire city of San Francisco. So let's see if Watch Dogs 2 fell victim to the same downgrade rootkit its predecessor fell victim to, or if Watch Dogs 2 upgraded its graphics and hey, maybe even patched its fun wall a bit to bring their idea of how this series and what it should be a bit closer to the reality of what it is. As always, if you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here's my review for Watch Dogs 2. Rob Zombie the Hacker, Darth Rootkit, and what San Francisco would look like after an apocalypse took 9/10 of its civilization. Graphics are up first. So as I continued to play Watch Dogs 2, I really began to understand just how unique of a title this is, whether it's hitting 900p for the Xbox One, 1080p for the PS4, or the improved non-native 4K resolution of the PS4 Pro. The game handles open world for the most part pretty damn well, and while draw distances aren't distant enough to not be seen, and LOD and texture pop-in do occur, they're combined with an impressive eye on keeping the architecture detail wildly different and population's personalities up front and center, from the bad to the bone gang-ridden areas like Elmhurst, which feels a little bit like people were there just to test the range of new weaponry for the gangs, or to the sweater over the shoulder pressed shorts areas up north that reminded you that Carl and Buffy are going to go play shuffleboard with the Andersons later tonight, and it's just going to be to die for. And even the locations in between, where you can see that pressed in home feel of San Francisco that reminds you that a city built, destroyed, and built again up like this one has, is going to result in a goddamn checkerboard of oddness when it comes to variety. Only, I would say, with GTA 5 have we really seen an overarching style and presentation of a world that's been done so well. Now, as you begin to drive around, crash into things, as we're wont to do, the vehicle and overall location damage modeling seems about the same as when I did the preview, and if you're not losing bumpers by sticking them through the heads of passerbys as you sugar glider your way off a giant hill, or just end up chopping a power line into 5 perfect pieces when you smash into one, the damage model is passable, and it does a pretty good job lending a bit of chaos to the worldview, but it's certainly not perfect. Now, also hats off to these guys for truncating the space of San Francisco, but still nailing verticality. There's this very real feeling to some of these places, even those not created around landmarks or known locations. There's just some cool shit, like the first time I grabbed a motorbike and Travis Pastrana did cross the backdrop of the bay into a house. Absolutely bonkers. Or sliding across the bay on a stolen boat, cleaving other vessels in half, not because you're mean, but really just because it's fun, and sending their occupants into the waters. There's some really good NPC reactions here as well. Now, some of this just looks amazing, and it's really a wash and an excellent choice of color palettes as well. That really reminds us that, unlike, say, Mafia 3, the world doesn't have to look like it's experiencing world-ending solar flares just because it's sundown. You know, its graphics engine is much improved, but at times you can positively hear it groaning under the expectations of prior titles in the genre, and certainly prior gamers' desires as well, including a population that doesn't look like it's starring in a horror movie called Thinning of the Herd. No shit, this is some of the leanest overall population I've seen in a long time in an open world game. And sometimes really, when you run into folks, it just feels like you're there post-Rapture and everyone's still going about what they did previously because no one has any clue what the shit they should be doing. Also, graphically, while it does have issues on the PS4 and the Xbox One with textures, and occasionally you're going to see this Lincoln log floating down the road next to you, and suddenly it's going to turn into a bus as the textures load in. Also, no system stays at 30 FPS. That's right. None of them. The PS4, the PS4 Pro, or the Xbox One. They just don't, each having various issues from frame timing to actual FPS problems, depending, of course, on debris and other particle systems in effect at any one time. For me as a package, the meatpack locations of San Francisco tightened up to allow for ocean blue sailing or throttling through old folks' homes with Harleys is actually really well done. The fact that it's so well done, though, reminds you of how odd it feels when you realize everyone else must hate it because, like, 4 people live there. It's good, but not great. Sound, music, and voice.
Josh, who's your friend?
Oh, this is Susan. She's a second-grade teacher from Milwaukee. She's 32 and she drives a cherry red.
Cool. Hey, we're gonna meet by the big... Fuck it! Fuck it, man. We're hackers. We outthink, we out dare. I say we tear down the fucking wall. Hey, show everyone what Bloom's up to, man. Show the world that their personal data...
And of course, sound is up first in this category, and it's actually pretty good aside from one or two instances. For example, the first time I turned an enemy's lights off with the world's weirdest and really honestly tinny sounding shotgun, I was not impressed. But then, while under an overpass sending led across a small ravine into gang members, I was actually highly impressed with the various effects of reverb, echo, and some occlusion. While it's not perfect environmentally, when you're engaging with enemies in gunfights, it's actually pretty damn cool. Cars run the gamut from excellent to maybe, but mostly lean towards being pretty good fake representations of themselves, aside from some of the cars with turbos having the turbo sound always on, which is odd. I'd leap out of a car if it sounded like that. Environmentally, the game world's moderately filled with various wildlife and population-based sound effects that play locationally specific, if unfortunately repeating quite a bit. It's okay stuff. Crashing cars and smashing through roadblocks is also pretty good, and overall I would say the entire game is either good to excellent when it comes to sound, though there are a couple problems here or there. Music. So this is actually good. While any kind of game of this kind, the music list is going to be filled with an assortment of licensed titles from the various, radio station playlists at that time. The actual normal gameplay music is done by Hudson Mohawk, who's a pretty talented producer of his own right, and this is his first game, a blend of sci-fi vibes with their own style. I'd actually say that while it is a bit of an acquired taste and not as easily and instantly digestible as some fare that the dev could have chosen in the end, the soundtrack is actually just really good. 1 second floating through a synth vibe and then crunch down into this piano solo and then back into a strange series of digital percussive instruments. It has far more of a raw feel than I ever expected, and I really like it. I think that this soundtrack sounds infinitely recognizable in a overall genre where that isn't said all the time. Voice. So this is actually a pretty good listen. It's not Shakespeare. This isn't even like Harry Potter, but the strange over-the-top antics of this hacker group that looks like they were led by a Katy Perry post-Russell Brand marriage with a fetish for bull rings. It's actually done pretty well. There's a strange comedic tone here that you have to come to grips with. While not as accurate, let's say, as the tonal punishing that GTA 5 does to the various bits of life's horrible realities, but I just came pulling into the local D&D store, which happens to be my base of operations, with a dead cop sliding slowly down the hood. Because, it's actually not that great of stuff, but it moves the story along, and where the pace fails, because honestly the story isn't that good, the voice actors do what they can with what they have. And that, of course, brings us to gameplay. So, as I said, you play as Marcus, a hacker who finds out that the CTOS 2.0 system has marked him as a troublemaker, even though, well, yeah, he actually is one. So, righteously indignant that someone else figured out that he's an asshole, he hacks into the city's mainframe and erases his profile with, 2 buttons, which erasing a Tinder or Facebook profile takes longer than that. Now, once he's done that, he basically has proven himself to DedSec, who take him under their wing. And basically, you decide that because you don't like how the Big Brother government types follow everybody and track everything, you basically become Little Brother and do the same thing that the governments did, that you're mad at, except you sort of wear cooler clothes. What follows is 30 plus hours of the main story, as well as a veritable what's what of side quests as you uncover who created the CTOS system and how to bring it down. Now, nothing here is going to surprise open world gamers, nothing. The overall feeling is the same as many titles that we have seen in the past, which means you follow this protagonist and his group of compatriots through the game's main and side quests, trekking all over the land, and in this case, a squeeze down San Francisco. Now, as a hacker elite group, your small team are consistently trying to focus attention on problems that involve the main story, and you do that to gain followers on the social media. It doesn't matter if it's tailing bad guys to take them out or performing some strange feat of social justice. Watch Dogs 2 never really strays far from the core beliefs that the main characters are right and everyone else is sort of wrong. Now, these missions can be done in a variety of ways, for example, stealthily using sneaking in your suite of various drones to hack computers and distract enemies, or you can go in all cue ball blazing. And yeah, that's right, because in a nod back to that Steven Seagal Out for Justice movie where he wrapped a cue ball in a towel and proceeded to perform the first bar and grill dentistry, in this, you're doing the same thing, but you have the cue ball connected to a bungee cord. Unique weapon aside, the end result of combat is pretty much the same. You or others die or wish they were dead. However, the journey to your life's end isn't so slick, because frankly, combat has a number of issues. Guns not having a good amount of real feedback in combat, a noticeable delay to things like bringing up the weapon wheel, or Marcus's strange lackadaisical parkour system that, while inherited from Watch Dogs 1, feels like some kind of digital warning about parents being brother and sister, because Marcus has all manner of problems really getting around locations. Now, it's not terrible, it's not really bad, it's just really loose. And while stealth is also loose, it's workable, and it's really enjoyable as you're not only hack grids and little mini games that can at times feel a bit like interesting puzzles. You still have the hilarious ability to set up your common man for life-ending folly as well, like blowing up steam vents in the road, or now being able to control cars so that they go careening into crowds, because who doesn't like a bit of California housewife driving cribbed right from the nightly news? easily some of the best stuff within the game is right there. Now, you also have online co-op for many side missions, and admittedly, that is sweet. And while the testing that was done prior to release on this indicated some problems overall, the couple of times I did it, it worked wonderfully. Also for multiplayer, they added a new bounty hunter mode, which basically means that when you cause enough anarchy, not only will the cops come after you, but other players might as well. Very, very cool stuff and a great addition here. Now, as you explore, you find research points, which allow you to upgrade things like your hacker's ability as well as your fighting ability. I can't say that really grabbed me, and ultimately, there was a lot of covering of ground for no real reason other than to grab that power up point to increase a skill versus just performing a mission and doing so. It's a very odd split, but combined with the various other activities like races and hacking, it does offer a diverse little group of things to do, but it felt a little bit like filler. Now, as a member of DedSec, you have various hacker clubs around the city that you can fast travel to, and each has a 3D printer, and of course, due to just how in it is right now to have one, you can also print out your weapons within there instead of just going to stores and getting them, which is actually really cool because sadly you'd have to drive if you did want to go to the store to get something, and the driving here is not that good. It's improved and worse than the previous title, which I didn't think was going to be possible. There's this strange jerkiness that, despite the settings and the options, never allowed me to dial in. The cars felt like they were almost super glued to the ground, and their sensitivity was turned up to root canal level, where the slightest little touch offered pain for everybody. Much of the title feels like you're running on top of the game world versus running within it. Lastly, they removed focus mode for various reasons, and I know a lot of people who like that from the original, but sadly it is not here, so be aware of that. And of course, that brings us to fun factor, where Mafia 3 had its story missions and aimed to tell this social tale despite what you may think of its world graphics or gameplay. And of course, Sleeping Dogs had its interactive environment and unique worldview. And then of course there's GTA 5 and its 3 protagonist swap and Scrooge McDuck worth of bankrolling. Watch Dogs 2 has none of that, aside from a very well realized world and also a very empty one. This game feels like it's one part GTA 5 light with a little bit of Saints Row 1 rubbed into it, and it just never feels like it all comes together in tone or gameplay. And the fact that we now have co-op missions and Bounty Hunter in it, and I still can't be pressed to play it anymore, that is a sad treatise on disappointment, my friends. Listen, I can ignore that your goal of fighting the man is saddled with the same knowledge that you're wearing the gore and insides of like 12 guards that just tried to arrest you because you ran over someone's mom. I have no problem with that. I actually think it's hilarious. But Watch Dogs never offers anything else inviting you on the other side to experience it, and that includes gameplay. Also, the game just absolutely yearns to be like and hip, and what could have been an excellent discourse on maybe the power of information and social media rarely feels like anything other than some kind of focus-tested oddity. So as you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never touch it again rating scale. With enough going on here and enough side missions, somebody else may like this, but I certainly can't say this is anything other than a wait for a sale. It is not to the point to where you're waiting for a deep, deep sale, but 50% off might be a good place to start looking at this title. In the end, I think Marcus and his group could have been awesome, but instead of their version of Mr. Robot, they got their version of Swordfish, and I don't think anyone anywhere wishes that on anyone else. So I hope you guys liked the review. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Maybe check out Twitter or Patreon. As always, if you want reviews that aren't 2 minutes long and filled with sponsored bullshit, stick with ACG. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.